Welcome back everyone to Formula 1 2021 and welcome to your qualifying report for the 2021 Portuguese Grand Prix. So far this weekend, especially in practice, Mercedes appeared to be the team to beat. But when push came to shove in qualifying, could Red Bull challenge the might of Mercedes and claim their second pole position of 2021? As always, if you are new, feel free to subscribe to keep up to date with all Formula 1 2021 news, reviews, podcasts, all that good stuff. But with spoiler warnings out of the way, here is your result from today's qualifying session. Claiming his first pole position in 2021, it was not Lewis Hamilton, it was not Max Verstappen, it was not Sergio Perez, it was Valtteri Bottas, who was just 7 thousandths of a second in front of Lewis Hamilton. 7 thousandths! An almost identical lap between the two of them meant Valtteri, just by the slightest of margins, had the edge over his teammate for the first time this season, continuing our streak actually of a different pole sitter at every Grand Prix so far this year. A really good job from Valtteri, a really good job from Mercedes, and when we get to our qualifying breakdown a little bit later on, I want to take a moment to focus on the, quite frankly, bizarre tyre strategies that have been going on this weekend, and how Pirelli, I think, have made a mistake on their tyre selection. Anyway, on with the rest of the result. It was Max Verstappen disappointed with P3, but with Sergio Perez only a 10.5 behind, don't discount Red Bull from the race just yet, but Mercedes do seem to be in control, and more importantly, on the medium tyres, all 5 of the front 5 will be starting on the medium tyres. I think Mercedes may have the edge in the opening stages. And talking about P5, Carlos Sainz, a really good drive from the Spaniard, his best qualifying for Ferrari, the first time out qualifying teammate Charles Leclerc, 6 tenths off pole position, though it's not where Ferrari ideally want to be. That's not bad at all. A big step forward from last season. Both Ferraris through into Q3 on the medium tyres. They've got a real good chance of some big points in tomorrow's race. A surprise in P6, is it a surprise? Esteban Ocon, a great drive from the Frenchman, and after having a great performance last time out in Imola, will look to build even more on that this weekend in Portugal. Notice, 6th place is the highest runner on the soft tyres. What kind of impact is that going to have on Ocon, but also Lando Norris, P7 for Lando. It's where he started last time out in Imola. Is a podium on the cards? I'm not too sure this time round. McLaren are definitely in the mix with Alpine, definitely in the mix with Ferrari, but that midfield fight is going to be so close once again this weekend. In P8 was Charles Leclerc. He'll probably be a little disappointed, a little frustrated to be 3 tenths off teammate Carlos Sainz, because all season long it's Leclerc who's just had the edge. And rounding out your top 10, Pierre Gasly was P9 and Sebastian Vettel for Aston Martin, the first time in his Aston career, making it through to Q3 in P10. And your bottom half started off with a mega performance once again from George Russell, P11 for Williams, his best ever qualifying for Williams, and the team's best result since Monza 2018 when Stroll and Sergei Sirotkin got through to Q3. And though George's performance once again was so good, so close to Q3, 500ths of a second, he'll be gutted, he'll be frustrated, but there is a silver lining. Starting 11th, he will have the choice of tyres, and actually, that'll give him a great advantage over Ocon, over Norris, Gasly, and Sebastian Vettel. And so maybe, just maybe, I don't want to get too carried away, but maybe there could be a possibility of points tomorrow for Russell if things go his way. P12, Antonio Giovinazzi, and actually, that's a really good lap from Antonio. Just a 10th away from Q3 himself. I think that's a lap that's going to go under the radar because the Alfa Romeo did look pretty quick this weekend, but comfortably in front of teammate Kimi Raikkonen by 0.6 of a second. And also don't forget, Giovinazzi didn't do first practice weekend because Callum Ilott was racing for Alfa Romeo. So really good job for Antonio, a driver whose seat is under pressure for next season. In 13th was Fernando Alonso, with Yuki Tsunoda in 14th, Raikkonen just getting through to Q2, but Daniel Ricciardo, the big story of today's session, out in Q1. And if the Honey Badger wants any chance of points tomorrow, he's going to have to show us why he is called the king of the late breakers and do one of his classic Danny Rick performances in a car he's not quite up to standard with just yet. He'll be disappointed from today. Another driver that'll be disappointed is Lance Stroll, also really struggling in Q1, 17th place despite making it through to Q3 in both races so far in 2021. Latifi 18th and the two Haas cars 19th and 20th. And as we move over to our qualifying breakdown, a usual looking top four. Mercedes 1-2, Red Bull 3-4, a Ferrari 5th. It's something we've become slightly accustomed to in the hybrid era, but I think even Mercedes will agree, what a weird session that was. Anticlimactic is kind of a word that comes to mind, because though the gap between Bottas and Hamilton was so close, we didn't really get the drama of them being so close. The track evolution was almost a strange reverse evolution where we saw the majority of drivers not only on their final run in Q3 set a slower time than earlier on, but also for most drivers, all of them except Valtteri Bottas, their best time was actually in Q2. It was only Bottas who managed to do a better lap in Q3, which ultimately for him gave him pole position. And with Mercedes doing a very strange strategy under normal circumstances of running the medium tyres at the end of Q3, they did it a couple of times last season. I think once again, this more highlights the weird decision from Pirelli to use the hardest compound tyres on this track. We're expecting a one-stop. We're expecting not only the medium tyres to almost do a full race distance, the soft tyres look like they're capable of doing more than half a race distance. So I think, like us at home, even Mercedes will be slightly confused at today's session, but they will be chuffed they've got an advantage over Red Bull. It's been so close between the two teams so far this year. For Valtteri Bottas, that's a big weight off his shoulders. He seems to have been a little bit off the pace so far this year, and though the margin was so close, that little advantage over Hamilton will do him the world of good. For Lewis, I think he's focusing on Verstappen and beating them by the margin that they had. I think he will be very happy indeed. But from a Red Bull perspective, 3 and 4, this time last year, they would have been really happy with that. 2 cars in the top 4, trying to maybe do a different strategy with both to challenge for the victory, and I think that still could be possible this weekend. Look, last time out in Imola, Verstappen started 3rd, ended up winning the race by a country mile, so never say never in Formula 1. But they will know, on race pace, on qualifying pace, like we saw today, the ball is in Mercedes' court. So for Verstappen, who's got one eye on the title, though he's starting 3rd, it's not ideal for 2 weekends in a row. And that's the reason why he was so frustrated after today's session. For Sergio Perez, though the result isn't quite as good as his 2nd place last time out, I think this is proving that he is the right decision for Red Bull. Just a 1/10.5 off Max Verstappen. He had a spin in Q1, managed to get out of the gravel, get going again. And the key for Checo this weekend, similar to Valtteri, is to just have a clean race. Get to the checkered flag, score some good points, and actually something Red Bull have not had the luxury of for a very long time is having a driver in the right place at the right time if something happens to those top 3. So for Red Bull, it wasn't quite the sunshine and rainbows they were hoping for with a car on the front row, but never say never. And actually, there is positives they can take from today, and I think tomorrow they do have a chance still of winning the race. Behind those top 2 teams, we've got our midfield. And though Ferrari seem to be at the front of it, 5th for Sainz, 8th for Charles Leclerc, both starting on the medium tyres, is their dream. Because in practice, though it's only practice, we can only take so much from practice in the data, they don't quite look as good on those soft tyres over a long period of time. And though they can set a good 1 lap pace on the soft tyre, When we're talking about 10 laps, 15 laps, 20 laps, lap times start to swing towards Alpine and McLaren's favour. So by starting on the mediums, that's going to do them a world of good, give them so many options for tomorrow, and should not only see Sainz be on the bubble of 5th, but also see Leclerc work his way in front of Ocon, in front of Norris, of course, if nothing dramatic happens and a few crashes and reliability issues for the Ferrari team along the way. Strategy, as we all know, isn't Ferrari's strong point, but it looks like they've got themselves in a good position for tomorrow's race. Alpine, a step forward. They needed this. It's been a tough start to racing this year. 2 points for Ocon last time out, 1 point for Fernando Alonso, 3 points for the team. But for an outfit that less than 12 months ago were fighting for third in the constructors' standings, they look a long way off third, a long way off fourth. So Ocon's result today will give them a massive confidence boost. They had the upgrades last time out at Imola. I think this circuit not only suits their car a little bit more, but with dry conditions, clear conditions, they will be glad to see those upgrades. Now they've had a little bit of time to get used to them, to learn how they work, it's good to see they're working. And Ocon, I mentioned it earlier, had a great race last time out in Imola. For him, I think this is once again building this season where he needs good results to stay in Formula 1, and actually so far this year, I think he's been pretty good. So fair play Esteban. For Fernando Alonso, a driver who had a great start in Bahrain, a very much contrasting ride in Imola, spinning all over the place, a real mess for Fernando. Things seem to have gone a little bit in between today. On paper, 13th isn't great, but he will have the choice of strategy. And considering Ocon had the pace to get through to Q3, I would also argue, like Ferrari, had the pace to get into Q3 on the mediums, Fernando's got a good car under him. A car that is definitely quicker than the Williams of Russell in front of him, and also the Alfa of Giovinazzi in front of him, so they do have a chance of getting both cars into the points. Norris, 7th. A disappointing day, I feel, all round for McLaren, because they've been this third best team all year long, and yes, it's been on race pace more than anything else. And actually, Leclerc has had some great qualifyings, Gasly likewise, and 7th for Norris is almost his average qualifying of this year so far. But for Danny Ric, 16th, it's not been the easiest start to life at McLaren, and hey, moving new teams is never easy. And though one weekend may seem to go so well, the next weekend a slight change on the car, a slight different variation of circuit, and it can really highlight some of the issues particular drivers are having with their car. Look at Fernando Alonso in 13th place. Sebastian Vettel really struggled in the opening 2 rounds. So swings and roundabouts for all of those drivers in their new teams. It wasn't the best lap from Daniel Ricciardo. There were a few mistakes, and he will know he did have the car, he did have the pace to get through to Q2. This wasn't a clean lap, this wasn't his best lap, so he will take some value in that his pace today was worthy of Q2, maybe not quite Q3, but there or thereabouts. I'm looking forward, really looking forward to seeing what he can do tomorrow. I think this will be the Danny Ric show. I really hope it's the Danny Ric show, with plenty of dive bombs, plenty of overtakes at every corner around the track. But it's going to be a big ask from him tomorrow. It wouldn't massively surprise me to see him start on the hard tyres, do something completely different, and then go for a soft stint right at the end of the race, push to try and make some overtakes. Renault did a similar thing with Danny Ric and Ocon last year, but no matter what strategy he's on, he's going to have to make some moves in the race tomorrow. Work to do for McLaren, but like all of those teams in the midfield, it's not the end of the world, because AlphaTauri, 9th place for Gasly, 14th for Tsunoda, and though this team for so many years, hey, getting through to Q3, fantastic, both cars through into Q2, also fantastic, is something we've gotten used to. In 2021, Gasly's been P5 in both races, and Tsunoda has been on the verge of Q3, so today will be a slight disappointment. Gasly on the soft tyres may come under threat from Giovinazzi, Alonso, Ricciardo, maybe even George Russell that will do the alternate, but they're not a million miles away from Ferrari. Only 3/10 off McLaren, and they will be in the mix, and that's the main focus for them. For Tsunoda, a quiet qualifying session, but like I say with all the rookies, they do need a little bit of time. This circuit is much more difficult than the first two we have had in 2021, so not too bad of a session for our Japanese rookie. Sebastian Vettel, P10, Aston Martin, like McLaren, a real mixed bag of a day today. For Seb, beating Lance Stroll is a huge achievement for him. Making it into Q3 for the first time since last year's British Grand Prix, 15 races, that's mega. That is a really, really big step forward. And I don't really know where it's come from, because in practice all weekend he looked to be off the pace, really struggling, especially this morning in FP3. But when push came to shove, on a track that we didn't think would suit the Aston Martin, a really good drive from Sebastian Vettel. Lance Stroll, in a similar bubble to Daniel Ricciardo, didn't get a good lap together in Q1. Alfa Romeo looking stronger than ever. We'll talk about them in a moment's time. And Williams also knocking on the door. You've got to be consistent in Q1. And whereas in years gone by it was guaranteed it was going to be both Williams, both Haas and both Alfa Romeo out in Q1, we don't have that this year. And so any little mistakes, any misjudgments from the team and track limits are going to cost you. And it happened with Danny Rick, it happened with Lance Stroll, but both of them have a great opportunity tomorrow to show us what they're made of, to work their way through the field, cause some drama, cause some magic. And a team that had plenty of magic again today was Williams. 11th place. So close to Q3. It's so nice to see that this team are moving forward. And they were very optimistic of this year, having 2 or 3 good races and then the rest of them being stinkers. I don't want to get too carried away, but this is now 2 weekends in a row where they were optimistic but not too hopeful of scoring points. And they've got a great chance of doing it tomorrow. Russell may be a bit of a train block. He may have to do some harsh and fierce defending, but on the alternate strategy compared to those in front of him, they do have a great chance. The thing for Russell is keeping his nose clean. Because though 99% of the time he is able to do that, and what happened in Imola both years was a bit of a blip really on his racing record, he doesn't want to get this reputation of almost getting points and then making mistakes. So I think if he can get to the checkered flag, if he gets points, great. If not, don't worry, it's all building on that experience. A great drive today from Mr. Saturday. And for Nicholas Latifi, some very choice words about Nikita Mazepin, both of them getting caught up in a real squabble in Q1. Second weekend for Mazepin, getting in the way of drivers in Q1. Not what he needs to be doing to improve his racing ability, but teammate Mick Schumacher, again, looking really good. And in a car which is clearly now the worst on the grid, half a second off Q2, not a bad job at all. Once again, miles in front of his teammate, keeping it clean, not bad at all. But Alfa Romeo, 12th for Giovinazzi, that's what he needs to be doing. He needs to be beating Kimi Raikkonen consistently, and actually though the headlines will be George Russell in 11th, Giovinazzi in 10th off Q3, not only is that a really special lap from Gio, the fact both cars got through into Q2, the fact both cars out-qualified a McLaren and an Alfa Romeo and were comfortably in front of the Williams, of Latifi and the 2 Haas cars really highlights their progress over the winter period. And that should be everyone. I think I've covered everyone in today's session. Just a really weird qualifying session. Again, anticlimactic. I'm not happy with Pirelli with their tyre choice this weekend. But before we go, let's take a look at driver of the day and ones to watch for tomorrow's race. Is it a surprise? I'm sure it's not. That my driver of the day, of course, is George Russell. 11th place, a 1:19.1, his best lap time in Q2. Just 500ths of Q3. It would have been a great story for him, but actually, I think it's better starting in P11. But once again, just another stellar drive on Saturday from Russell. Shout out, I would also say, to Giovinazzi, Ocon and Vettel, also putting in great laps, but you can't deny G. Russ, driver of the day in qualifying today. And ones to watch, also, not particularly surprising, Lance Stroll, number 18, starting in 17th place. Russell, what can he do? Starting in 11th, can he score his first point in his Williams career? Ocon, I'm interested to see what that starting on the soft tyre is going to do, especially in the opening phases of that race. And your ones to watch for this weekend's Grand Prix, of course, the Honey Badger, Daniel Ricciardo, so disappointed with 16th today. Can he score points with a mega drive in the race tomorrow? And that is it from me for your qualifying reports here in Portugal. Your race, the Portuguese Grand Prix, 3 o'clock tomorrow in the afternoon. I'll be live with the F1 Word afterwards for some race reaction, with your race review a little bit later on in the evening. Thank you all very much for watching. If you are new, feel free to subscribe, and I hope to see you all in the next one.